Hey, everybody, just checking my sound, and I see all 7 of us board members here. So we'll start in just a minute. Madam Vice Chair, are you ready for us to start tonight?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I want to make certain that you can hear me, and you
Yes,
can.
I can.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Madam Chair, it looks like Eva is in as an attendee rather than a panelist, so she may need to be promoted.
Okay. Mr. Jones or Mr. Schofield, do you see Eva Dubison?
You should be promoted.
Thank you so much. Yes, I see that she is. Okay. Okay, welcome everybody. Good evening. Tonight is Monday, January 31st, 2022, and I call this meeting to order. The Orange County Schools Board of Education pledges to our families, staff, students, and the greater community to conduct our business in a courteous and productive manner, showing respect for fellow board members, staff, and citizens. The board asks its citizens to conduct themselves with the same courtesy towards all staff members and each other. As per board policy, Robert's Rules of Order will be used to conduct meetings. As we begin our work this evening, I would like to recognize that Orange County Schools was established on land previously settled by the ancestors of the Occaneechi Band of the Saponi Nation. This board has made a commitment to honor and respect the heritage of Indigenous and all members of our OCS community, to work to undo decades of racial harm, and to build to the best of our ability a community that fosters a sense of belonging for all of our students so that they may thrive and succeed. Please join me now for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
The second.
Okay, I have a motion from Ms. McKenzie and a second from Ms. Stevens. Ms. Smiley?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Atherton?
Yes.
I vote yes. Ms. Hauser?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
And Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Great, thank you. We are going to start with a policy overview. This is a special called meeting of the Orange County Schools Board of Education, and in accordance with policy 3210, the purpose of this meeting is to consider a parent's appeal of the decisions of a school-based committee and a central office-based committee to retain 3 books in the Cedar Ridge High School Library. I've asked Vice Chair Stevens, who is also our board's policy committee chair, to provide a brief overview of policies 3200 and 3210. Thank you, Ms. Stevens.
Thank you. I'm muted. All right. Good evening. For the purposes of this meeting, we will focus on policies 3200, selection of instructional materials, and 3210, parental inspection and objection to instructional materials. The document that is posted in our agenda spells out the process to this point. Our focus is 3210 because the materials or books in question are considered supplementary, as they are not a classroom assignment or classroom materials. The procurement of materials must be accomplished in accordance with law, including the First Amendment of the United States Constitution and selection guidelines from the North Carolina Bill of Rights, the Library Bill of Rights. The First Amendment protects not only freedom of speech, but also the freedom to access what is published. I trust that we all have gone through 3200B, where it's spelled out to provide a wide range of materials that will enrich and support the curriculum, to provide materials that will stimulate growth in factual knowledge, to provide a background of information that will enable students to comprehend their role as citizens in society and to make intelligent judgments in their daily lives, to provide resources representing various points of view on controversial issues so that students as young citizens may develop under guidance the skills of critical thinking and critical analysis, to provide resources representative of many religious, ethnic, and cultural groups in our nation and the contributions of these groups in our American heritage, and to provide principle above personal opinion and reason above prejudice in the selection of material of the highest quality in order to ensure a comprehensive collection appropriate for all users. Also, according to policy, our discussion or decision, will be binding for the next 2 years. I'll turn the floor back over to the hands of Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Stevens. Any questions for Ms. Stevens? Okay, we understand our purpose here tonight. Okay, now I would like to invite Dr. Felder, our superintendent, to provide an overview timeline of how the Cedar Ridge High School Review Committee and the District Review Committee responded to this complainant's request and what they ultimately decided. Thank you, Dr. Felder.
Good evening. Yes, good evening. And thank you, Chair Doyle. Good evening, Vice Chair Stevens, and to the entire board, our staff and families. And so indeed, the board has a copy of a timeline of actions regarding the request for consideration of materials with regards to Lawn Boy Out of Darkness and Genderqueer per policy 3200. And so the purpose of this timeline is to highlight that the process was followed by both the complainant and district staff per policy 3200. The first section outlines the actions per the school's review committee. The second section outlines the actions per the district's review committee. And last but not least, where we are today with regards to the board review committee. So any questions with regards to the timeline?
Okay, no questions for Dr. Felder? Thank you so much, Dr. Felder.
Thank you.
Okay, so as mentioned under policy 3210, the board will review the matter and make a final decision in an open meeting, which is what we're doing now. The board must decide, one, whether the books will be retained in the media center with or without additional conditions, and two, whether the board's decision should apply district-wise or just at the original school. And Dr. Felder has shared that the decision made by the district review committee was that they be district-wide, a district-wide decision. We will vote on the books one at a time, beginning with genderqueer. And so I have an opening statement to read about genderqueer, and then I will give each board member a minute or two to share thoughts before I ask for a motion to retain or remove the book. So in case you have not had a chance to read genderqueer, board members read the books in their entirety. And Genderqueer, a memoir by Maya Kobabe, is the 2020 American Library Association Alex Award winner, and also a 2020 Stonewall Honor Book. Kobabe uses pronouns similar to they, them, but without the TH, so they sound like air. I read this beautiful book, which described Kobabe's journey in identifying as a non-binary young adult. I especially appreciated the author's description of her feelings about her body as a non-binary person, including feelings of confusion and disgust, which over time ease as Kobabe develops a healthy sense of self-love and respect. I was also deeply touched by the loving and supportive family and community that helped Maya Kobabe in their journey. My hope is for the OCS community to be equally supportive of our LGBTQ+ students, staff, and families. One of our OCS high school students shared with our board the following, which I'm sharing with you tonight with permission. Quote, "Seeing these books on the shelves makes me feel like there is a place for me. LGBTQ kids deserve to be seen. Nobody likes to feel alone, and keeping these books on the shelves will ultimately save lives." End quote. I applaud our school staff for selecting this important book for our Cedar Ridge High School Library, and I support our school and district review committee's decisions to keep this book available to students at the high school level. I would want that to be the case at the high school level throughout the district. So at this time, board members, we can go around and everyone can have a turn to comment or pass, and then we'll take a motion. And Will, can we start with you?
Yeah, I have a question before. I'd like the attorney to talk about General Statute 14-90.1, obscenity, and then also talk about General Statute 14-190.15 on deemed harmful to minors, just so we have perspective, as that's been brought up many times.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
So these are both criminal statutes, and Chapter 14-190.1 is the obscenity statute, and that applies regardless of age, which renders it unlawful to distribute material that is obscene. And legally, that's a fairly narrow term. You know, we have heard it used a lot of different ways, but in the legal sense, it's a narrow category that, you know, there are many things that are sexually explicit that are not considered obscenity. And so what the statute says is, to be considered obscenity, the work has to describe in a patently offensive way sexual conduct, which is defined later in the statute, that the average person applying contemporary community standards relating to the description of sexual matters would find that the material taken as a whole appeals to the prurient interest in sex, and that this material lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value, and that it is not protected by the First Amendment or the Constitution of the United States or North Carolina. And so generally that is something material would have to meet all of those definitions to be considered obscenity. North Carolina also has a statute, the second statute you mentioned, which is 14-190.15, which is regarding dissemination of material that's harmful to minors. And the dissemination of obscenity is a felony, or can be. The harmful to minors statute in general is a misdemeanor, but to distribute to minors material that is harmful to minors, which is material that depicts sexually explicit nudity or sexual activity, and that when the work is taken as a whole, and again, that's in the statute, the work is taken as a whole, not an excerpt, that the average adult person applying contemporary community standards would find that the material has a predominant tendency to appeal to the prurient interest of minors in sex. And so, and prurient is not a term we use all that frequently anymore, but it really references to something that is intended to arouse or intended to appeal to the sexual interest, as opposed to just describing something that is sexual. So it has to meet that, and that the average adult person applying contemporary community standards would find that the depiction of sexually explicit nudity or sexual activity in the material is patently offensive to prevailing standards concerning what is suitable for minors, and that the material lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. So again, all of those things must be true in order for something to be considered harmful to minors in the criminal sense.
All right, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
My comments tonight are really focused on the review and looking through everything the school did, the district did. I think they did a great job, and Dr. Felder, really appreciate your letter on the details describing all that have been shared. One of the things that I think is very important that I don't think is realized is that we do offer the ability for people to decide they don't want their child to see this material, and they can opt out versus opting out everyone. So I think that's a significant item. The only other comment I have is I do am concerned with the age appropriateness and making sure that that is always considered as we look at books. And that's my comments for this.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Will. Bonnie? Oh, Bonnie, you're muted, I think.
I don't have specific comments on this book. I have some general comments, but I don't have particular, and I appreciate Will's questions because they create context for my feeling about this topic.
Okay, Hillary?
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Great. As we reviewed tonight, this board has a policy for how materials are selected for our media center collections. My votes for all three books will be based on trust and respect for the professionals who made the original selections and again reviewed their inclusion in our high school campuses and catalogs. I support genderqueer and find it especially important because we know that transgender and non-binary youth face elevated risks for depression, thoughts of suicide, and attempting suicide compared to youth who are cisgender and straight. Having resources for our LGBTQ+ students is something this board must absolutely protect. And I just want to mention that the trevorproject.org is a great place to find more information about transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people. And it's an excellent resource for anyone who needs more information. Thanks.
Thanks, Hillary. Jennifer?
I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, this book is it's not for instructional purposes in the classroom, and I feel like it should be made available to age-appropriate Orange County High School students as a non-circulation affirming resource so that the book does not reach the hands of students who do not have parental consent. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Sarah?
Thanks. So I believe that this book has serious literary value in our high school libraries. If you read the book and take it as a whole, it describes the author's genuine struggles with gender identity and sexual orientation while growing up. And that's not something salacious or pornographic. That's clearly not the story the author is telling. And as to age appropriateness, we have a lot of evidence that the book is appropriate for high schoolers from the expertise of the school library community. This book has received national literary awards and recognition related to being a valuable book for teenagers. So Carrie had mentioned the being an Alex Award winner. That's given to 10 books written for adults that have special appeal to young adults aged 12 through 18. The school library journal gave it a starred review and said it's a, quote, great resource for those who identify as non-binary or asexual, as well as for those who know someone who identifies that way and wish to better understand. And it was also the 2019 nominee for Young Adult Library Services Great Graphic Novels for Teens. So upon review, I can see why the two previous committees determined it was appropriate to have in our high school collection. And I will not vote to ban this book over the expertise of both the school library field and our own educators.
Thank you, Sarah. Brenda?
Sorry, had to unmute. So I wanted to say, because I think I've heard this, we're not talking about putting genderqueer or any of these books in the hands of a 6-year-old. We're talking about our high school here. I think that is very important. And as a librarian, I don't ban books. I try to get books in hands of as many people as possible because we need to learn from them. And as I think Sarah just said, there is so much that can be learned from them if you read them as a whole, not taking them out of context, highlighting a line or a paragraph here or there. So I support our committee and our superintendent's recommendation. Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda. Thanks everyone for sharing your thoughts and your questions. And at this time, I would like to ask for a motion.
Motion to keep genderqueer in high school libraries throughout our district.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Hillary, and a second from Sarah. And I think that addresses the two tasks we had, both keeping it and across the district. So
May I ask one question? The policy states that I think that the default or that the decision may extend for up to 2 years. Ms. McKenzie, is that your intent that it lasts for 2 years?
Can we make it longer?
No, it's 2 years in the policy. That's why I said that in my statement, that we would, it would be 2 years.
Can we waive policy and make it longer?
You could, with a 2/3 vote, I believe, to waive the policy and have it be indefinite.
Well, my motion was then to waive policy and make it indefinite.
And I second that.
okay, we have a motion from Hillary and a second from Sarah. Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
Okay, I vote yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes, ma'am.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Sarah? Thank you
Yes.
so much. All right.
Can I ask a question or a comment? And
Sure.
as the board makes comments here or votes for things, are we usurping the school's authority to make decisions about books? So will the board's decision override or undermine a school's ability to make a decision about what it wants to do with the book in the future? And let me ask also, does the decision of this board bind future boards?
The answer to the second question is easier, which is the decision of this board is binding until a majority of the board makes a different decision. And it can be a majority of whoever is on the board at the time that that decision is made. And with regard to, I think that this decision does mean that the book is not going to be removed from the collection. I would not interpret it to mean that the normal process of selection of instructional materials could not continue, selection and review that the media technology committees do. But I'm open to, whether or not that comports with the board's intent. I would not assume that there is intent to change that process.
Dr. Felder, do you have any concerns to that regard?
I do not.
Thank you. Okay. Does that answer your question, Bonnie?
Yep, thank you.
Great. So if we go on to the second book, our second book is Lawn Boy by Jonathan Evison. Lawn Boy is a 2019 American Library Association Alex Award winner. This semi-autobiographical story traces 23-year-old Mike Munoz's obstacles and efforts to overcome the low expectations and limited environment he is trying to rise above. Mike shares that throughout his life living in transient housing, he often found the most stability at the public library, but was always trying to find more books that told his story. A young man who finds passion and solace in landscape design, Mike is determined to write the great American landscape novel. Along the way, he deals with racism as a Mexican-American youth, as well as confusion about current feelings and past experiences in regards to his sexuality. In the end, he finds a loving partner who encourages him in his dreams and sense of self. One of the takeaway messages of this book to me is that regardless of what our stories are, they are worth telling and hearing. I fully support our school media specialist in selecting this book for Cedar Ridge High School. I support our school and district review committee's decision to keep Lawn Boy available to high school students, and I would hope we would do so across our district high schools. And Will, do you have comments that you'd like to make?
My comments are the same for all of these. So thank you for giving me the chance to say something.
Okay. Okay, Bonnie.
Yes, I'm sorry, I should have said this the first time. So I'll just kind of in general say that when I first saw the images and passages that parents brought to our attention, they made me uncomfortable. And once I read the books and had a context to understand these images and understand the stories that underlied them, I think that's a word, I felt a lot better. Although I must say, I wish the authors would have, or editors could have been a little less graphic. That's just a personal opinion, and that has that's just a personal opinion. And I spoke to a lot of teachers, administrators, counselors, parents, and more, and I feel uncomfortable about selecting specific books as a board member. I think that's the job of our schools, working with students and families. I do believe that it is our job to assure that these books comply with law and board policy, which has been nicely articulated today. And for each one of these books, I believe they do. I will support upholding the recommendations of the school and district review committees, and I would prefer that our motions were in the context of keeping the authority in our schools and districts and district committees.
Thank you, Bonnie. Okay, Hillary.
Thank you. Lawn Boy is a coming of age story, and while there are some references to sexuality, it is not at all the focus of the novel. The lessons about wealth inequality, racial injustices, capitalism, laboring under capitalism, and working through difficult family dynamics are thought-provoking and age-appropriate. If this book was banned from our collections, I honestly can't imagine what would follow afterwards. I support keeping it. I support our LGBTQ plus representation in our media centers, and I support our LGBTQ students and staff members today and every single day. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Hillary. Jennifer?
Sorry. Yes, I feel the book supports high school students who struggle to find self-discovery and relatable stories. And I support the decision of Dr. Felder and the review committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Sarah?
I also believe this book has literary value in our high school libraries. Others have described the book. I'll say Kirkus reviews summarize Lawn Boy as, quote, a book about triumphing over obstacles and obstacles and obstacles and more obstacles. And I believe that our young people should have access to a story with that theme of continuous perseverance. In terms of age appropriateness, again, there's evidence that the book is appropriate for high schoolers from the expertise of the school library community. This book also won a 2019 Alex Award, given to books written for adults that have special appeal to young adults ages 12 through 18. So upon review, I understand why the committees determined it was appropriate to have in our high school collection. And I will not vote to ban this book over the expertise of both the library field and our own educators.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Brenda?
Yes. So again, this book has won awards, and the book bears literary merit as a work of fiction, and I will not vote to ban this book. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. And at this time, I would like to entertain a motion, and remember that we want to include whether this is district-wide, and once again, Dr. Felder's team wanted this to be a district-wide decision. That was their decision as a district review committee, and also a time frame.
Madam Chair, I motion to waive policy to definitely include Lawn Boy in our high school media centers.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Ms. McKenzie and a second from Ms. Smiley. Mr. Atherton.
Yes.
Okay, I vote yes. Ms. Hauser?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Dr. Moore?
Sorry, yes.
Okay, Ms. Smiley
Yes.
and Ms. Stevens.
Yes.
Great. Thanks, everybody. We are now ready to discuss the third and final book, which is Out of Darkness by Ashley Hope Perez. Out of Darkness was the 2016 winner of the Tomas Rivera Mexican-American Children's Book Award, specifically in the Works for Older Readers category. This award was developed in 1995 by the Texas State University College of Education, specifically to recognize authors and illustrators whose work speaks to the Mexican-American experience. The book also was a 2016 American Library Association Prince Award Honor Book. I personally love this beautiful, heartbreaking, and excruciating piece of historical fiction set in 1937 East Texas, where there was an explosion at the New London School, a school designed to serve only white children. The two protagonists are Naomi, who is Mexican-American, but lives with a white stepfather, and Wash, who is African-American. Wash and Naomi forge a friendship and later a romance that they must keep secret because of the deep racism in the community. Reading how challenging simply living their lives is for these two teenagers because of racism that turns at times violent provides an opportunity to develop empathy and understanding, especially for readers like me who are white. I want our high school readers to have access to this literature. I'm grateful it is there at Cedar Ridge High School. I support the school and district committee's decision to keep Out of Darkness on our Cedar Ridge High School shelves, and I hope it would be available at the high school level across the district. And once again, I'm going to go to you, Will, but it's fine if you want to pass.
No, I'll say the same thing I said before. I just really appreciate the thoroughness of the process, all of the district staff that reviewed, the opportunity to actually read the book ourselves, and also, Ms. Doyle, you pointing out the awards that have been recognized. And I do support our committees and the superintendent's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Bonnie?
Yeah, I also, it's probably a good idea to thank parents who raised concerns and started a conversation about the suitability of these books. Really appreciate the work of the school and the district review committees and for their rapid and thorough reviews, and to Ms. Duverson for helping us put this in a legal context of looking at state and federal law. And I, again, intend to uphold the committee recommendations district-wide.
Thank you, Bonnie. Hillary.
Thank you. So I finished reading Out of Darkness this morning, and in the author's note at the end of the book, I came across two quotes from Ashley Hope Perez that perfectly underscore the importance of fiction grounded around historical events, such as the 1937 New London school explosion that the school is centered around. She says, "An understandable protective impulse sometimes inspires efforts to conceal, diminish, or disavow such painful histories. The work of this book, however, was to bring to light experiences and narratives that might otherwise go unacknowledged. I have tried to balance the heartbreak, cruelty, and ignorance of my characters' world with a profound attention to the forms of kindness and connection that are also possible in it. And in researching this novel, I was struck by the many ways in which whole swaths of lived experience have been largely excluded from historical accounts, in part because certain communities were not deemed worthy of note in newspapers and other sources considered authoritative and reliable. These silences need to be amended. I hope my fiction gives readers an appetite for stories lived in the margins of spotlit scenes." Out of Darkness is a super challenging, heartbreaking read. Like it was truly stirring for me, but I absolutely support its inclusion in our high school media center collections. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hillary. Jennifer?
My comments are basically still the same. I still support Dr. Felder and the review committee with their recommendations in regards to Out of Darkness. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Sarah?
I believe this book has serious literary value in our high school libraries. If you read the book as a whole, while it does include some painful scenes, including sexual assault, it is clearly not written with the intent to appeal to prurient interests. Instead, this is a moving and informative piece of historical fiction that helps one better understand the experience of what it was like to live in Jim Crow era Texas as a Black or Mexican American young person. And in terms of age appropriateness, we have a lot of evidence that this book is appropriate for high schoolers from the expertise, again, of the School Library Committee. Ms. Doyle mentioned one award. The first award you mentioned was for children's books. The Prince Award also honors the best book written for teens based entirely on its literary merit each year. And then I also wanted to note that this book is currently available on NC Kids Digital Library, which is described as, quote, a first of its kind statewide ebook consortium specifically for children, which was created by the North Carolina Public Library Directors Association, Overdrive, and the state of North Carolina. So I can see why the two previous committees of OCS educators determined that it was appropriate to have in our high school collection. And I will not vote to ban this book over the expertise of the library field and our own educators.
Thank you so much, Sierra. Brenda?
Wow, thank you, Sarah. That was great. I joined my colleagues in the library in saying that this is this book, Out of Darkness, addresses the social and racial unrest that, of course, that so many people would like to sweep under the rug. And I've observed a lot of challenges, and a lot of the challenges seem to be towards books of this nature. And I wonder, are these challenges to prohibit us from teaching certain things? I support keeping this title in our high school libraries, and I thank our superintendent and our committees for their hard work. And I will not ban this book.
Thank you so much, Brenda. At this time, I'd like a motion for Out of Darkness.
Madam Chair, I motion to waive policy to indefinitely retain Out of Darkness for our high school collections throughout the district.
Thank you so much, Ms. McKenzie. Oh, that was a motion from Ms. McKenzie and a second from Dr. Moore. Brenda?
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
I vote yes. Bonnie? Donnie? Oh, sorry. Did you?
Muted, sorry. Yes.
Okay. Hillary?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
And Sarah?
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. We have unanimously supported the conclusions of both the school committee, the district review committee, and our very own superintendent, Dr. Felder, in keeping these books and making them at the district level. And so at this time, before we adjourn, I would like to ask board members if they have any closing comments. And please just respectfully take a turn or show of hands, either way. Sarah?
Thanks, Carrie. So I wanted to say, I think it is totally appropriate for us to take each book on its merits and specifics and use this process in order to make a really specific decision for each one. That's appropriate. That's what we've done tonight. I want to thank you for a smooth process in doing that. But for the historical record of this meeting, I also wanted to acknowledge the broader context, and Ms. Stevens just referred to it, in which we're being asked to remove these particular books. So right now, all over the country, there is a sudden surge in book ban challenges, and they are coming from organized, well-funded political groups that are masquerading as so-called parents' rights groups. And the stated concern of any particular book challenge might be language or violence or sexual content. But if you look at the books that are being targeted, and these groups have lists, right? If you look at the lists, there is a different pattern to them that we shouldn't ignore. The vast majority of the books being challenged are either about people who are LGBTQ or are about people who are Black, Latino, or Indigenous. These are the characters that these organized groups don't want students reading about. These are the stories that they want erased from our public schools. But our queer students and families and teachers exist. Our students and families and teachers of color exist. And I do not agree with pandering to these attempts to limit students' access to voices of people of color and LGBTQ perspectives. The context matters. Our students see it, they know it. And our marginalized students need this school board to state clearly and unequivocally that they matter and that in this district, we are committed to creating learning environments where every single student belongs and is valued, and where all students are taught to think critically and use good judgment and engage with hard history and engage in a diverse world. And so I hope that our decisions tonight made that clear, but in case there was any doubt, I wanted to be clear that that's where I stand. And I wanted to say thank you to all of the educators who took on the additional load of reading these books and considering the request to remove them at a time when y'all are already exhausting yourself for your students. And the last thing I wanted to say is it's things like this conversation tonight that get the most media attention and the most Facebook chatter. And I get that because it fits into a story and it's kind of sensational. And obviously, if we get a book challenge, we've got to do this whole thing and make these decisions. But I want to stress that where this board and this district are focused every day is on the real work of our schools that doesn't get all of this attention. The work to prepare our students for success in the world and to get better and better in the places where we're falling short on that. We are focused on educating children with excellence and equity, and we're taking action together to get better for kids. And I am proud of that. And I am grateful to the entire Orange County Schools community for your commitment to our students' success, despite any attempts at distraction. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Well said, Sarah. Hillary?
Well, I can't really follow that. I echo Ms. Smiley's comments 100%. Thank you for your comments, Ms. Smiley. So on point. And I just wanted to give a special thank you to our chair, Carrie Doyle. You have done an excellent job managing this and preparing for this meeting. And I appreciate your hard work and management of this situation.
Thank you, Hillary. Other board members who'd like to make a closing comment?
No, I will say thank you to Sarah because I touched upon it on my last comment, but you said it more eloquently because it's troubling that all of the challenges that are coming forth are coming to these very distinct groups. And of course, I'm a part of that, and it's not a good feeling. Thank you.
And
I'd like to thank our students. Aside from hearing from parents and community members in our public comment forum that we had available in advance of this meeting, we heard from numerous students, and the students were unanimous in that they wanted these books, they needed these books. It was already hard enough being LGBTQ+ in our schools. These books were a comfort to them. These books helped develop empathy. These books helped them understand their peers. And echoing what Brenda and Sarah said, these books speak to the stories of racial minorities. And so I really appreciate our students taking the time to make themselves heard to the board this week. Bonnie?
okay, I just wanted to, and I also want to thank Sarah for your comments. I think they're well said. I have a question, a rhetorical question that I'd like to raise to the parents who are concerned. And the question I have is, what are we protecting? And are we protecting an idealized notion of our humanity? And if I could, I don't want to speak for the board, but I feel like these books and an education in general is about building resilience, and it's about making our students stronger. And I grew up, I'm old enough on this board to have grown up in a time where all our stories were kind of whitewashed. And I keep asking parents if they remember the adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. And nobody knows what I'm talking about, but it was a time where everybody lived in this perfect, 2-car, 4 family member, perfect suburban community. And over time, we finally realized that is not the world that we are in. And I am grateful to these authors for having put words to these stories and images to these stories. And so I just needed to say that. So I just would like people to think about, because I'm sure this conversation is not over, but I'm trying to understand what is it that people are fighting for and what are people fighting to protect, because I don't understand it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. Will, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to also just echo the comments. And I just really appreciate everyone taking time to send us their thoughts and concerns and point of view and, all the thoroughness that's been done through the process. Because I feel it's so important for all of us to understand, what is the process, how we get there, who we're supporting, and the impacts they make on everyone. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And again, thank the superintendent for bringing these forward to us.
Okay. If there aren't any more closing comments, Jennifer, do you have any? No. Okay. Then I will take a motion. Actually, Dr. Felder, do you have any closing comments?
Oh, indeed, I do. Thank you so much, Chair Doyle. I want to co-sign all of the comments made tonight and to thank the Orange County School Board for upholding the decisions of the school and district level committees who did an absolutely excellent job of reviewing the books and making the recommendations that all 3 books continue to be retained in our high school media centers for our students' access and benefit. So thank you again for supporting the process and their decisions.
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion from Vice Chair Stevens and I have a second from Mrs. McKenzie. Sarah?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Atherton?
Yes.
I vote yes. Ms. Hauser?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
And Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. We are adjourned. Have a great evening.